All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the CHP Spotlight Interview Series. Today I am really pumped because we have Lisa Reichmann. I just found out how to pronounce it correctly.
Good job.
Joining us. Good, awesome, I did it right. We did it well. So Lisa is a running coach, and she is one of the founders of Run Farther and Faster. For those of you who want to find out more, you can find them on the website, runfartherandfaster.com, on Instagram, at Run Farther and Faster, Facebook, Run Farther and Faster, and then their email is Julie and Lisa at runfartherandfaster.com. So Lisa, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So first off, for those of you for people who don't know who you are, can you share with us a little bit of just when you got started running and really what got you inspired to start doing so?
That's a great question because I have so many people now. I just was talking to somebody the other day who was shocked to find out that I didn't do this my whole life, that I wasn't a high school runner and college runner. And I said I was actually the opposite. I was the last picked for every team. I was really uncoordinated. I did, sort of typical, and in the 80s, what a lot of girls did, dance. I did cheerleading as I got older. And that was the extent of my athletic abilities. And I always thought of myself as not an athlete. And I didn't start running until toward the end of college. And then at the very beginning of law school. And it was more a stress release for me. And I had friends who ran and would say, hey, let's get out of here, get away from the books and just go out and run and let off some steam. And it was great. And I think it was that first summer after I had started running. I have a younger sister who lives in the area, and she is a teacher, and she was student teaching at Lakewood Elementary School in Rockville. And she came to me, she said, we have this fundraiser 5K. We're trying to raise money for the library and for the school. And will you you've been running with your friends. You can run 3 miles. Will you come sign up for the race? Because we need more people. And I said, sure, no problem. No idea what to expect. And went to the race and ended up taking second woman and getting a prize. And I think I had a gift card and what? And now I have to say that it was a small race. It was mostly parents with their kids running for fun. And, it wasn't super competitive, but all of a sudden I thought, wow, something maybe that I'm actually good at and I can excel at. That when's the next 5K? And for, about a year, I did some 5Ks. And then I decided to bump up to the 10K distance. And we were actually living in Arlington at the time when I was just starting running. And I remember one year seeing the runners from the Marine Corps Marathon finishing, and it's probably maybe 1997, 1998. And they were all wrapped in the Mylar blankets. It was pouring rain. They were shivering and walking home, and we were in our warm car. And I said, I'll never run a marathon. So I had that in my head that I was not going to run a marathon. But one year, I think it was in 1999, I ran the Army 10 miler in very similar conditions, freezing cold, rain. And I finished the race and felt great. And I thought, well, gee, if I could do that, maybe I could do that marathon, even if the conditions aren't so great. So after that, I signed up for my first marathon, which was Marine Corps Marathon in 2000. And I trained with a group in Virginia that was led by some chiropractors there that were also running coaches, and really just did the long runs with the group on the weekend for the guidance on how to fuel and how to do my long runs, and also for the company of the long runs. And then the weekday runs, I remember actually skipping a lot of their workouts. I thought their training schedule was really intense and it wasn't right for me. So I did my own thing during the week. And I remember they said to me, well, what's your goal for a finish time? And I said, I don't know, 5 hours, 5.5 hours. And they kind of laughed at me because they knew, and now as we know with our runners, that you really can look at some of your shorter distance races and extrapolate an expected or potential finish time, assuming that the training is there. And they kind of laughed and they said, we think you can qualify for Boston. And I didn't even know at the time what Boston was, what qualifying for Boston meant. And I kind of thought, well, whatever, I really just want to finish this marathon. And sure enough, first marathon comes along, and I finished in 3:22, I think it was, 3:22, 3:23, and qualified for Boston. And again, didn't really know what that meant, but I thought, all right, well, I better go to Boston because it seems like a big deal. So long story short, I think I'm now 40 or so marathons in. I've run the Boston Marathon. This year will be my 17th time running the Boston Marathon. And I love the marathon distance. I love that challenge. I love the fact that you don't have a lot of speed pressure. You know, I get to the start line of a 5K and it's like, I have to run really hard and really fast for a really short period of time. Versus a marathon where you have a little more time to ease into it and you really have to challenge yourself strategy-wise and pacing and mentally. So I've really enjoyed the marathon distance. And, so now, like I said, my friends who knew me in high school can't believe what I do. About probably about 10 years ago or 12 years ago after I have 3 kids. So I have twins that are now 13 and I have a 12-year-old daughter. And after she was born, I decided to mix things up. I wanted to mix up my training and decided to get back on an old bike and started doing some triathlons. So I mixed that in again about 12 years ago, maybe 11, 12 years ago, started mixing that in and found that I liked the cross training, found that the cross training helped my running. So I did one full Ironman, done a bunch of half Ironman distance triathlons, and I got really into duathlon because I'm not a great swimmer. So duathlon is run, bike, run, and got really into that and did a couple international competitions on Team USA for USA Triathlon, and just went from there. So it's been now I've been doing this for a very long time. It's been over 20 years since I started running, but I always tell people I started later in life, and I was not a natural athlete.
Wow, that's such like a cool story as to how you really got into it. Because so many runners I've talked to, they like you said, they ran in high school, they maybe ran a little bit in college, maybe they missed it. I always hear, and then they come back. But it's interesting, kind of how you have the impetus to kind of get you started. Now that feeds into my next thought. If I'm a runner who, let's say I've never run before. But I'm thinking about it. It's 2020. I want to get into something that's like a healthy behavior, and running's easy. I can just open the door and go. What advice? Because I know these are a lot of people you work with. What advice do you have for somebody who maybe is thinking of doing that?
Be smart about it and make a plan. And that, there are lots of resources out there that you can look at. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes how much information is out there. So first, get some support. So whether that be a local running club, whether that be a running coach, whether that be a friend who's run, get some support so that you can set out a plan. And take steps. We get a lot of people who say like, well, I want to run a half marathon, but I don't even know where to start. And that's like totally overwhelming. Well, like, let's break it down. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning and let's take small steps. So first step, I would tell anybody who's thinking about, who has not run before or hasn't run in many years and maybe ran in high school and hasn't done it now in several years, or who's never even run before. So the first step, would be to get some good running shoes. So this is something that gets very easily overlooked. And a lot of people think like, I'm just going to go online and, see what's on Amazon and Google running shoes. And okay, those look good. I've heard Nikes are good. And or I heard that these shoes will make you really fast and these look great. Or they pop into, a mass retailer and they look on the signs on the wall and they see running and they put on a pair of shoes. They say, these feel good. They're on sale. And they buy them. You know this just as well as we know this, but really your running shoes are really important, and they're an investment that is really worth the cost, depending on your biomechanics, your pronation, your arch, what else is going on in the rest of your body, what training you're doing, what are you going to train for? You're going to train for a marathon, you're going to train for speed. What are a lot of different factors determine the appropriate footwear, what should be on your shoe, what should be on your foot. And really somebody like you who can watch a runner and determine what those biomechanics would dictate for a shoe, or a very well-trained staff person at a running shoe store, a specialty running shoe store. Now I say, well-trained because it's hard. And you know this, I'm sure. But Julie and I went, and Julie is my coaching, my business partner, Run Farther and Faster. And we went to a run medicine conference at UVA several years ago. And we sat in a room with orthopedists, sports orthopedists, physical therapists, professionals who watch and work with runners all the time. And they put a video of a runner up on the screen, just running on a treadmill, and said, tell me what you see about this runner. What do you see? And people raised their hand and gave some feedback. And they said, well, let's slow it down now and let's take it frame by frame. And everyone all of a sudden said, oh, wait, I see something totally different. And I see that this runner would need a different type of shoe. So when you go into a running shoe store, you want to make sure whoever's watching you has the knowledge and the foundational base to really be able to watch and carefully watch and understand what you need. And so that's the first thing, though, is to go into a specialty running shoe store or go to a professional like yourself who can say, you're going to need to go into a running shoe store and this is a type of shoe. You're going to need a stability shoe. You're going to need a neutral shoe. You might want a lightweight racer. You might want something more substantial because you're going to be putting in more miles. So that is the first step that I would say. The second step, again, is having this plan. And even if you ran in high school or college or 5 years ago, and if you're starting over again, the best way to start is run walk intervals. And that, to some people who, especially if you've got a little bit more, you're real motivated, or you have a half hour and you just want to get out and knock out as much as you can in a half hour, that's a little bit frustrating for people. But starting with run walk intervals is how you're going to introduce your body to the impact of running and start building your aerobic base. And that is the most important factor in the beginning of your training, is building your aerobic base. And that's done at an aerobic effort. So it's easy effort. That's, zone 1, zone 2 heart rate. It's not super fast intervals. It's not adding speed work early on. It's really just getting in time on your feet. So a beginner, I would say, plan 3 days a week. When you can get out, first go for a walk for 30 minutes and then introduce a minute run, 2 minutes walk. Make that, do that 10 times for 30 minutes. That's super important. Backing up a little bit, before you even do that, or in conjunction with doing that, and again, this is something you talk to our runners a lot about, is having that foundation of strength. Because you can get out there, you can have the right shoes, you can be doing the right training, but if you have some weakness or imbalance, it's eventually, as you build up your mileage, it's going to manifest itself in maybe some pain, an injury, or just some general running efficiency. So working on strength with a professional, a trainer, a physical therapist, working on some of those foundational strength movements, plyometrics, learning how to generate force out of the ground efficiently. That's a really, really good base to have. So we love it when runners come to us and they say, well, I've been, working with a trainer or with a physical therapist on my core strength, on my hip strength, on my glute strength, and now I'd like to start running. We think, great. You're in a really good place to start because you've got that foundation. So I guess, those are sort of the 3 things I would say, is that make sure you've got the right shoes, plan to start with some run walk intervals and gently introduce that impact to your body and build over time. And make sure you have the foundation or that you're working on the same time on that strength and stability. Running is a single leg sport. So every time you're landing on one foot. And if you don't have that stability and you've got a little micro wobble every time you stick that landing on one foot, again, you may run into problems down the road.
Yeah, that's so many great things that you pointed out there. That's awesome. And what's cool about it is I think it highlights how nuanced a lot of this is too, because there's no right answer for everyone, like you said. And, everybody needs, and somebody might need help with running shoes, but that's not going to be the only thing. They also need an optimal program that is progressive in nature and has some method to the madness, so to speak. And then, of course, having that great foundation, it's fantastic to hear that, because I think a lot of times, I'm sure you see this, everybody's looking for the sort of magic bullet where they want like a perfect running shoe to fix everything, or they would want you to be able to hand them a program and have that cover it all. And there's always lots of little pieces that have their place. And what's cool is the approach and mindset that you clearly have for coaching. I could see how that could apply to not just people running that have never ran before, looking to get into it, but also somebody who maybe more is like a recreational runner, but now is looking to really get serious and train for something as well. I think there's value to everyone in terms of having a program to build to something. Obviously, everybody needs a decent set of footwear, and people always have things that they can work on to lay a better foundation and give the body, I think, more ability to handle the stress of, in this case, running, but that applies to a lot of other sports as well. So that's really great points. And then, so for you, you mentioned one thing I thought was really cool was how you mentioned when somebody starts off running, the value of a community. I think that's so huge because I know for myself in particular too, it's like I love exercise and those kinds of things, but it's really hard to be consistent when you're always sort of by yourself, relying on your own willpower, which is, not a ever-ending resource. And having that community to push you and is always helpful. So, so for you, we mentioned coaching being something that is obviously can help facilitate that. So obviously you've created this great organization. So you're a great person to ask this. If I'm in either one of the examples I talked about earlier, and I'm a runner, novice runner, whatever the case is, and I'm thinking of working with a coach, how do I know whether that's appropriate for me or not?
It's a great question, and it touches on the individuality. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people want that big group, they want to have a group that they meet every Saturday and every Wednesday. Some people want to do it on their own, but they need that structure and accountability. That's a big thing we hear from a lot of our runners is I need the accountability. I need somebody checking up on me. So maybe it's not that they need somebody to run with, but they need that accountability. And really, like you said, that motivation is not always in ready supply and fluctuates throughout the year. This time of year is hard. It's dark in the morning. It's cold. It's hard to get out. It may be icy out. The weather dictates a lot. So I think really individuals have to look at themselves and say, what is going to keep me motivated and what type of person am I? Am I somebody who likes the statistics and likes seeing a calendar where it, pings green when I've done the workout and I've got a coach that's, giving me feedback on that workout, on my cadence, on my pace, on my heart rate? Am I somebody who needs to know that there are people waiting for me at, dark 30 and I've got to get up and go out with them? So I think really understanding what yourself, the individual, what motivates them. And I think talking to people in the running community, talking to different coaches, that's really important, is to interview different coaches and find out what is their philosophy, what is their personality like, what are you going to connect with them? Is this somebody who's going to be able to guide you and be a good fit in your life? Is it somebody who understands the demands of your life? So we have plenty of runners who come to us who say, I need that big group atmosphere. And we do group runs once a month. We do some smaller group runs, but we're more focused on individual coaching and tailoring individual schedules to runners. So if it's somebody who really wants that big group, we may say, go check out Montgomery County Roadrunners Club, have some great training programs that are really big. Now their training programs are more generalized to the population of the training program. But if you want that group program, that may be a good option for you, or you can do the group program and use us for coaching, and we'll work those group runs into your personalized training plan. And if we think it's something you should do something a little different than the group that day, we may tell you that. So I think somebody who's looking at, is this right for me? How do I, do I get a coach? Do I join a program? Do I look up a plan on the internet and just try to follow that? You really have to just look at yourself and say, what motivates me? What is going to keep me moving towards my goal? And then, like I said, talk to different people, maybe try different things out, talk to a coach, go to one of the coach's group runs, or, talk to other runners who the coach has worked with, go to a group run, see if that seems like the right fit for you. And if it isn't, you can always make changes and tweaks to your plan. And that's something that's really important too, is that flexibility and really the mental approach to running. So much of what we see, we can give runners programs, until the cows come home. And if they can't get themselves into it and to follow it and motivated to follow it, it's really not gonna do them any good. They're just gonna have a plan in front of them that they can't seem to figure out how to follow. So really getting that, figuring out the mental part and giving yourself the flexibility that it's okay if things don't progress exactly. Progress isn't linear. You may progress, and then you may drop off a couple days, and then, pick it up. And that's where a coach is really helpful. And, if you're following a group program, or you're following a program you download from the internet or an app, and you're not following the progression, you may think, uh-oh, what do I do now? All right, I'm off the schedule. I'm done. And some people get discouraged. So that's where a coach can really help say, okay, that's all right. We motivation slipped, or you were sick for a week, and let's figure out now how to get back. And so being flexible with yourself, and knowing that maybe you do set a big goal. Maybe you set your goal for, I'm going to do a half marathon, and then you realize life gets in the way. It's not progressing the way you thought it would. Maybe you have a little injury, something happens, and being flexible and revising those plans, and realizing that you can still make progress. So I think not taking it like an all or nothing approach is really, really important too.
Absolutely. No, that's a great perspective. And especially when you highlight how it always just does come down to the individual, and being able to, I think you're right, reflect on the type of person you are, and the things that motivate someone, and what types of things you're looking for. And of course, just testing things, going and checking out a group run, and just seeing for yourself. You can always overthink this stuff, but sometimes just going out there and seeing what's available is huge. And so Lisa, for you, I have some questions about Run Farther and Faster. So first off, what inspired you to become a running coach, start Run Farther and Faster? And you already mentioned a couple of things, but what also kinds of things do you guys do at Run Farther and Faster for the runners that you work with? I know that's multiple questions in one, so if you need me to repeat anything, let me know.
I love talking about Run Farther and Faster, and I love talking about what Julie and I have built, because really it's one thing to be a runner, and we both of us have successful running careers, and really have we're great runners ourselves, but what we take the most pride in is finding this way to help other people discover what running has brought to us. Because for both of us, both Julie and I, neither of us ran when we were younger, didn't do sports. We really didn't have that confidence either that often comes with being good at something and having a team sport. We didn't really, either of us, we both talked about this. We didn't have that. And once we found it, really gave us a sense of confidence, a sense of something that belonged to us as moms, as, parents who get busy and focuses so much on your kids often, having something for yourself and accomplishments. So for us to be able to bring that to other people is really our greatest accomplishment. And Julie and I met 10 years ago now. We're celebrating our 10-year run-iversary in a couple weeks, officially in a couple weeks, but really this year is our 10th year working together. And we met through mutual friends who said, I know somebody else who's a really good runner, and she just got certified as a running coach, and you should meet. And we met 10 years ago, and we worked on some programs through the JCC of Greater Washington and the city of Rockville together. And then we looked at each other and said, I think we could do something with this, and we think we're onto something. And over the years, we coach individuals. So we coach individuals mostly through virtual coaching. So we have an app that we use that has the schedule, and runners have it on their phone or on their computer. It gives them a reminder the night before what they're supposed to do. We feed their schedules in, and those are totally individualized schedules. We spend about an hour or maybe more talking to a runner at the very beginning when we first meet them about their motivations, about their schedule, about the demands on their lives, about their goals, about all this stuff that we talked about. And we talk to them. They fill out a runner profile that goes over a lot of that information. And then we start from scratch, and we build a schedule that is unique to them. And we do usually 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks at a time on their schedule, and see how that goes. And then we're flexible. We know we may need to change the approach, change the schedule, change the paces, but everything's very unique and individual to them. So, and we communicate on a regular basis through our app. Anytime they do a workout, it feeds into, they can either, if they have a Garmin, it'll upload. If they have Strava, it will upload, or they can manually input their workout. So we're getting instant live time notifications of this runner completed their run, here are their stats, and we can communicate right away, say, hey, how'd this go? We can check in with them at the end of the day. How'd you feel on this run? And they can say, well, you know what? My ankle was hurting a little bit, or, this is going on, or my motivation was really lacking today. And we can really address on a real-time basis their progression. And so that's our individual virtual coaching. We also do corporate and group programs. So for 5 years now, I think we've done a program for the Montgomery County Public Schools faculty and staff wellness program. So in the fall and in the spring, we do a group program. It's also virtual. So faculty and staff sign up. We send them a schedule. We send out weekly emails. We're available for questions. We help them organize, if there are a bunch of them at a single school that want to get together and run. And we work towards a goal race. So we have several corporate programs like that. We've worked with AstraZeneca. It used to be MedImmune on a group program like that last fall. We work with Montgomery College. We're talking right now at the primary day school in Bethesda about helping them with a faculty and staff wellness program. We love doing that because it's really neat to see how working together and working towards a goal race, or just encouraging each other to progress and keeping each other accountable, really builds morale in the workplace. And it's neat. Montgomery County Public Schools just did a feature story on one of the runners that participated in the program in the fall, and a 72-year-old woman, never had run before. She came out for some of our group runs. We had a chance to meet her, and she works at Seneca Valley High School, and she finished her first 5K, and the pride that she had when her granddaughter was at the finish line to see her finish, and the support she had from her coworkers. So that was really cool. We do some group programs. We've cut back on those over the years, just as our virtual coaching has expanded, and as our runners have told us that they really like that individual attention. But we do occasionally do group programs where we'll meet on a track or for group runs and a kind of more traditional group program. And then Julie and I are both the run ambassadors for Lululemon, as you know, for Lululemon in Gaithersburg. And so we've had a great opportunity over the past 6 to 8 months, or almost a year now, and into next year, to build the run community through Lululemon. And so we do monthly group runs and have had a great opportunity to bring in professionals to talk to our runners like you. So thank you for coming and speaking to our runners this last run, and just to meet other runners in the community and give them an opportunity to come together and find some friends who they can connect with to keep them motivated, or just, on a Saturday or Sunday, get out on a beautiful day like we had last week, get out for a run and some conversation and asking us questions and getting some feedback on the running from us. So lots of different things. We last year started a podcast. We did it sort of as fun. Both of us, between Julie and I, we've now run the Boston Marathon a cumulative 26 times, I think. So we have a lot of experience running the Boston Marathon, and it's like our passion to talk about running and training for the Boston Marathon. So last year at this time, we decided, podcast seems like a cool way to connect with runners outside of our area. Let's do a podcast on preparing for the Boston Marathon. So we started with some professionals. We had a sports psychologist come on. We had a dietitian come on and talk about those aspects of training. And then we got a little bit ambitious, and we said, who, in our dream world, who would we have on the podcast? We said, how about Dave McGilvery, the Boston race director? Thought he's going to be too busy to come on our podcast. We reached out, got him on our podcast, got him to give us some great tips, insider tips on the Boston Marathon. Then we thought, who else do we admire? Catherine Switzer, one of the first women to run the Boston Marathon, first woman to, officially run the Boston Marathon. And we said that she's one of our sheroes. And we reached out to her, and guess what? She came on the podcast. So we had this great podcast series last year with some experts and some luminaries in the running world. And we thought, who's listening to this? It's just fun for us to have a conversation and talk to these experts. And we thought, who's out there listening? So we decided, as the Boston Marathon got closer, to propose a meetup in Boston. We said, well, if anyone's listening and they want to come meet up with us, and we set a date and a time. And we had so many people come, and they were from all corners of the world. We had somebody from South Africa. We had somebody from Canada. We had California. We had Iowa. We had Florida. We had DC. We had all these people just show up and say, your podcast was amazing. It helped me prepare. Or I've run this 6 times and I still found some tips that were helpful to me. And we meet all these new friends, and that was really neat. So our podcast, we're starting it up again. We just did our introductory opening for this season last week. It's the Run Farther and Faster podcast, which you can find on iTunes or on any of the podcast platforms. And we're going to do another interview coming up this week with Runner's World contributing writer and author Cindy Kuzma. So we're going to get to talk to her about all the writing that she's done on the running world and running community over the years, as well as her new book that's about coming back from injury and getting through injury mentally strong and coming back strong. So we're going to get to talk to her this week. And that's been a really unexpected and amazing way to connect with the running community and for ourselves to get so much great information from so many different people, lots of inspiration. We've interviewed a lot of runners who have amazing stories that we found very inspirational. And I still think about them when I run races and think about the tips they gave us and the strategies they told us that they used to mentally get through a race. I still use those. So that's been a really, really great way. And like I said, unexpected, huge, just much bigger than we thought it would be way to connect with the community.
That's so cool. I mean, you, Julie, and Run Farther and Faster, there's so many great things that you guys are doing. And obviously, you help so many people here in the DMV community with what you're doing. It's cool to hear now how you even launched more than launched, you've had it for a year now, the podcast, and almost built now more of like that international community. That's huge. I think that's always the thing I found really unique and special about running in and of itself, is that it's very much community driven, and that's so valuable. So once again, Lisa, you shared so many fantastic things. I know a lot of people are gonna get value out of this. For anybody who again needs to reach Lisa, Julie, Run Farther and Faster, once again, the website is runfartherandfaster.com. You can find them on any YouTube, not YouTube, a podcast platform to find their podcast, as well as Lisa was just nice enough to mention. And Run Farther and Faster on Instagram, Facebook. And again, the email to reach them, if you need to contact them that way, is Julie and Lisa at runfartherandfaster.com. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
Thank you. It was great to see you again. And we appreciate everything that you do to help our runners stay strong and healthy and run efficiently. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.